Welcome back, Endgame community. I'm Pierre. He's Chris. We're here to help you set those winning lineups. As always, we're going to go game by game to talk about the quarterbacks and tight ends that matter the most and give you our thoughts on them. First, let's talk about some guys we really don't need to discuss because they're must-starts no matter who they're playing. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews. All right, let's kick things off with the Steelers and the Browns Thursday night matchup. For now, it's still Mitch Trubisky at quarterback for the Steelers. Not sure how much longer that'll last, but for the time being, does he have any fantasy value?
I mean, only if you're desperate in 2 QB Superflex leagues, but I don't want to be starting Mitch Trubisky.
Man, even in a 2-quarterback league, I would say hopefully you have a different option to go to because on the road against Cleveland, this is not a great pass offense. Good receivers, just Mitch ain't it. So I'm going to say I would pass unless you really have no choice. And then tight end side, we'll look Pat Freiermuth, a.k.a. Fryer Goat. He's been getting it done. Can you keep it going with him in this matchup?
Yeah, I think he's borderline. I mean, he's not a must-start like Andrews and Kelce, but I think when it comes to the tight ends that aren't in that upper tier, he's a guy you have to have in your lineup every week. He's just getting such a high target share, so yes, I start him.
I agree. You got to chase the targets, especially a tight end position. So Freiermuth right now, I'd say kind of a must-start. Jacoby Brissett, not going to lie, any world's on fire in terms of fantasy. Is he startable?
No, I mean, even last week, when he actually had a good game, it wasn't that good for fantasy. Kind of like Mitch Trubisky, you'd have to be desperate not starting Jacoby Brissett.
Here's the thing with Brissett, like when he was with the Colts, at least he could run in a touchdown and give you some value that way, but he's not doing that because Nick Chubb is there. There's no need for them to call his number near the goal line, so no, there's no reason to start Jacoby Brissett. And Dave Njoku at tight end, well, he at least did something in week 2. Is that enough to give you any hope for week 3?
Not really. I mean, if you're completely desperate, sure, but I'd prefer not to start David Njoku.
Yeah, not a great matchup against the Steelers. I'll say you're going to have to hold off on Njoku in your lineups. All right, Bills going against the Dolphins. Dawson Knox. Most people want to be starting him every week. Do you think he should be starting in this matchup?
I mean, he's just such a touchdown-dependent tight end at this point. I know there could be a lot of fireworks in this game. There could be a lot of scoring, but nah, I think I could find better options than Dawson Knox.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to say that all season. He's just kind of a touchdown-dependent guy, so you can start him, but yeah, he's not a must-start. Probably somebody you should have kind of had as a high-end tight end too, more than a weekly starter. All right, now, of course, Tua, coming off a historic performance, 6 touchdowns, but look, I'm realistic. That was against Baltimore. Every cornerback they had was injured. This is Buffalo. So I'll let you go first. How do you feel about Tua?
I think Tua is a fine start if you're in a 2 QB Superflex league and he's your QB2. Not a guy I want to be streaming or starting in a 1 QB league. So 2 QB Superflex only.
Yeah, for this week, I feel really good, obviously, about him going forward, but it's Buffalo. And look, he did make a couple of mistakes, right? That interception early on, which is why they got in that hole in the first place. So I think the volume could be there, especially if you feel like Buffalo's going to put up points. Then that would mean they're going to pass a lot again too, but I'm not ready to put him in the top 10 just yet. And then, well, Mike Gesicki did get a touchdown. He showed some signs of life, but is that enough to make you feel like he's fantasy relevant?
No. 4 targets on a day when Tua threw the ball over 50 times. Like, no, that was just a freak, crazy game. Not putting Mike Gesicki in my lineup.
Yeah, when you have not 1 but 2 elite wide receivers, the tight end is just not going to get enough love. So I'm going to pass on Gesicki, especially against Buffalo. All right, the Bengals taking on the Jets. Look, we haven't had Joe Burrow as a must start, and now you really have to question if he belongs in your lineup. So against the Jets, how do you feel?
I think you got to start him against the Jets. If he can't bounce back against the Jets, then it's full-fledged panic mode. But this matchup is just too good. You got to start him.
Yeah, his numbers have definitely been disappointing, but like you said, it's the Jets. You've got to trust that he'll do something. I feel Jamar Chase should have a good time in this game, so Joe Burrow also, you kind of have to start him. Now, Hayden Hurst, numbers did take a dip when T. Higgins back for the full game, but he's still getting targeted. Is that enough for you to think that he might be streamable?
In this matchup against the Jets, I think he's fine as a streaming tight end.
Yeah, look, you might be without George Kittle again. You might be without Dalton Schultz also. We'll see what happens there. I do think Hurst is streamable, but not a must-start even against the Jets. And then Joe Flacco, I mean, outplaying Joe Burrow, outplaying a lot of quarterbacks, honestly. But let's be realistic. Do you start him in fantasy?
No, only in like a deep 2 QB or super flex league, not in a 1 QB league. Not starting him.
Yeah, not get carried away. I mean, look, if I thought that the Bengals were for sure going to put up a ton of points, which they might, maybe he does again. Maybe he goes over 300 yards the third straight week, but I'm not counting on it. But look, you could put him in a super flex lineup. Sure, why not? And then Ty Conklin has been the guy at tight end. He's actually been decent. But what do you feel? Is he a streamer that you are high on?
No, I'm not high on him this week. Garrett Wilson's starting to emerge. They've got pass catchers there. Touchdown dependent guy, so prefer not to start him.
I think he's a guy that, look, if I do have to pivot at tight end, he's up there, kind of like with Hurst I mentioned. You know, Gerald Everett's pretty much owned most places. So I think you could go with Conklin. He's just not my top choice, but he's streamable. All right, Raiders taking on the Titans. Let's start with Derek Carr. Monster first half and kind of nothing in the second half. A big letdown against Arizona. What do you think he does against Tennessee?
It's Tennessee. I think he should have a great game. So I think Derek Carr is a great start this week and a great streaming option in your 1 QB leagues.
I'm going to agree. You know, I'm big on Carr this season. We'll just pretend the second half never happened. I'd say, yes, roll with Carr. Must start. Darren Waller, probably must start too.
Yeah, especially in this matchup, you got to start Darren Waller.
Okay, Ryan Tannehill, you know, never going to be the most exciting guy for fantasy. What do you think he does against the Raiders?
I mean, I think he should have a decent game. He's not a guy who's got a massive ceiling because he doesn't not loaded with weapons and they want to run the ball. But I think in a 2 QB super flex league, he's a solid start.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there. Super flex or 2 quarterback league, maybe. Otherwise, no, not too much interest. And then Austin Hooper, at least getting some attention, you know, on Monday Night Football. But how do you feel about him as far as week 3?
And another guy who's feels just completely touchdown dependent in an offense that doesn't really throw the ball a lot. So I'm going to say no to Austin Hooper.
Yeah, those rookie receivers have kind of emerged and kind of made Hooper not that exciting. So I'll say no to him. Saints at Panthers, Jameis Winston playing with like fractured vertebrae. I mean, all kinds of banged up. He's still slinging the ball. Do you think he can do it against the Panthers?
I don't love him this week because I don't think this is a game where they're going to have to sling it a ton. Like the Panthers offense isn't going to put up a bunch of points. So I think he's okay, you know, in 2 QB super flex, but not a guy I'd want to be streaming or starting in a 1 QB league.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, even with Kamara out last week, he didn't really have a huge game. He's capable of it, but I just don't know if he's that guy, at least right now and not right here. So, yeah, he's more to me kind of a middling QB2 this week. And then the QB / tight end, depending where you play, is Taysom Hill. We expected good things last week, and of course, he did nothing. So, what do you expect this week, and what's actually going to happen?
I expect nothing to happen, and I think nothing will happen, so I'm sitting Taysom Hill.
Yeah, I mean, who knows with that guy, right? One big play or nothing. So you can stream him if you need him, right? He's not the worst option at tight end. Just don't get your hopes up. Speaking of not getting your hopes up, Baker Mayfield, I mean, does he have any appeal for you against New Orleans?
No. Even in 2 QB Superflex leagues, I would not want to be starting him against this defense, so I'm going to sit Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, Saints have a tough defense. Baker Mayfield, very little upside, so to me, I definitely want to sit him. To me, he's not much better than Mitch Trubisky, to be honest. Okay, so Baltimore taking on New England. You know you're starting the quarterback and tight end for the Ravens. For the Patriots, maybe not so much. Let's start with Mac Jones.
I almost always say no to Mac Jones, but this matchup, maybe he can kind of sort of do something. So I think if you're desperate in a 2 QB Superflex league, he's startable, but outside of that, no.
Yeah, maybe you could start him this week. That secondary is banged up and awful. But I'm never going to be that high on Mac Jones. And just this Patriots offense in general, led by Matt Patricia, they're just not going to be that exciting. So I'll say Mac Jones only if you need to. And then Hunter Henry is still a pass for me.
Yeah, Hunter Henry, no thanks.
Lions, Vikings, divisional rival game here. What about Jared Goff? I mean, Lions are putting up points, but Goff is still just kind of okay.
Yeah, I think he's a fine start in your 2 QB Superflex league. Still not a guy I want to stream in a 1 QB league, so going to say no if you're in a 1 QB league.
Going to agree with you there. The problem is when they get in the red zone, they like to run the ball, so that just limits his upside. And then at tight end, man, TJ Hawkinson starting to look a little bit like a bust. Do you think he gets it going against the Vikes?
Probably not, but kind of have to start him if you have him. And unless there's somebody good on your waiver wire still, which is unlikely, you're almost stuck with him. But don't love him this week, but got to roll with him.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I don't love it, but against this Vikings defense, he's still got some upside. But if he does nothing this week, I'm ready to cut bait. And then on the other side, Captain Kirk against the Lions, you got to feel this is a great spot for him.
Yeah, a great start. Another guy like Derek Carr, I think if you're in a 1 QB league and you need a streaming option, he's a great quarterback this week. Must start.
I'm going to go even higher than that and say must start. I mean, there's very few quarterbacks I'll be higher on this coming week. The obvious guys we already said that you start no matter what, but yeah, Kirk Cousins should be in line for a big game here. Irv Smith, just don't know. I mean, maybe working his way back to full health, but is he really going to be involved in this passing offense?
No, I'm not trusting it, so no to Irv Smith for me.
I'm going to say no until further notice for Irv Smith. All right, Eagles and the Commies. Let's talk about Dallas Goedert. Solid tight end. Most weeks you probably want to start him. I'm guessing this defense isn't going to scare you away from that.
No, definitely must start Dallas Goedert.
Definitely start Dallas Goedert. Carson Wentz, how does he fare against the team that drafted him?
I mean, it's a tough defense, but we see Carson Wentz 2 weeks in a row gets down and puts up garbage time points. So I think I'm not going to say, I don't like him as much as Derek Carr or Cousins as far as, those non-obvious QBs. But I think if you're desperate, you can start Carson Wentz.
Here's the thing with Wentz. It's not so much that he's so inspired in this offense and that he's, reinvented himself. When the defense is really bad, the quarterback has to pass a lot, and that's what's been happening. They've struggled. He gets the volume. I think he gets the volume in this game too, so I'm not going to say must start. I'm not assuming he gets 3 touchdowns, but I think he's a really high-end QB2 this week again. And then Logan Thomas at tight end. I mean, he's done something, getting his share of targets, scored a touchdown last week. Is he on the streaming radar?
Borderline, because we got 3 good pass catchers here. He is involved, so that's good to see, and he did get that touchdown, but I still feel like, a lot of weeks you're not going to get much from him, so in deeper leagues, if you need him, you can start him.
Yeah, I kind of like him, especially in this matchup. I think he is streamable. Not a must start, of course, but I do think he's a pretty solid option. Chiefs at Colts. We know about the Chiefs side. On the Colts side, there's Matt Ryan coming off a just disastrous performance. Can he salvage anything against the Chiefs?
If Michael Pittman plays, I think Ryan is an okay start in your 2 QB Superflex leagues because, look, this should be a shootout. The Chiefs are going to put points on the board against this Colts defense, so he should have to throw a lot. But if he doesn't have Pittman, then no chance. He's got nobody to throw to outside of Pittman, so without Pittman, I'm off of him.
Yep, feel the same way. People will say, how can you even think about Matt Ryan after last week? That was one game, right? That was a bad game. If Pittman's back, he'll be okay. And like you said, could be a ton of volume in play. So he's startable in super flex leagues. Texans at Bears. Let's see if these quarterbacks do anything of note this week. So start with Davis Mills against the Bears. Can he kind of get things going offensively?
I mean, not a guy I want to start in a 1 QB league, but again, in this matchup, in a 2 QB Superflex league, I think you can start him. But 1 QB leagues, no thanks.
Yep, you nailed it. Because of the matchup, you could have some interest in deep leagues or Superflex. That's about it. Justin Fields, I mean, look, if he's going to do anything, it's going to be on the ground, not through the air. Does that, hold enough interest for you?
It gives me some hope as a streaming option, even in 1 QB leagues, because it's the Texans. He could run for a bunch of yards. We saw it against Green Bay. He'll get chances to score touchdowns. Not going to do much through the air, but will get you enough with his legs in this matchup. I think he's worth a look, in deeper leagues or if you're streaming QB.
That's the thing is, he scored a touchdown on the ground early, and he was inches away from another one. Would have had a decent fantasy day on Sunday night. So against Houston, I think he's serviceable. A lot of people think it's crazy, but ask who to replace on waivers with Trey Lance. My first option for this week might be Justin Fields. And then Cole Kmet, I think when we talk about busts, the biggest bust so far this year, he's got to be near the top of the list.
Yeah, you can't start Cole Kmet. Come on, no way.
No. He didn't score touchdowns last year. This year, he's taken a step further by just not even catching a pass. So, no, you cannot start him. And I think it's okay to drop him right now. Jaguars taking on the Chargers. Trevor Lawrence starting to maybe come into his own. You think he can do anything against the Bolts?
I'm nervous in this matchup. This is a good defense, a good pass defense. I'm going to sit Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like as surprisingly good as Jaguars did last week, I feel like this could be a big letdown game traveling to the West Coast against an improved defense. Khalil Mack in his face all day. I'm really worried about Trevor Lawrence. I'm going to say no. Evan Ingram has been involved. Maybe he has a bounce back season, but again, against the Chargers, what do you think?
I think he's streamable. He's getting targets. He's getting looks. This might be a game where Trevor Lawrence has to get the ball out quick, and that's usually good for the tight end. So not a must start, but I'm going to say he's streamable.
Yep, I feel the same. Streamable. He's kind of in that mix with those guys who are okay, not super exciting. So you can roll with him. I just don't feel great about him this week. Now, Gerald Everett has been really good the first couple of weeks. This kind of depends on if Keenan Allen plays, I guess. So let's think about it. You think if Keenan Allen does come back, does that kill Everett's value?
It certainly hurts it, but I still think just because it's the Jaguars, I think you can roll him out another week because this defense is so bad. There should be opportunities for him. So I think he's fine even if Keenan Allen is back this week.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. Look, even week one when Allen was out there, Everett was getting some attention. Always touchdown upside, and it's the Jaguars. So I still feel like Everett is one of your better options if you're looking to replace maybe Kittle again or Schultz. All right, we got the Rams against the Cardinals. Matt Stafford bounced back. Do you think he keeps it going against Arizona?
Yeah, this defense has shown me nothing so far to make me worried about it. Especially with Watt out, you got to start Matt Stafford.
Agreed. Definitely a solid start. Roll with Stafford for sure. And then Tyler Higbee, really, I don't think anybody saw the fact that he would be the second leading receiver so far on the Rams coming. Do you think he can keep that going against Arizona?
Yeah, and good matchup. I think you got to roll with Tyler Higbee again.
It's a very good matchup for tight ends. Arizona giving up a lot. I know maybe based on who they've played, but still. Until he shows that he's not going to be involved, Higbee looks like a really solid streamer at tight end. And then Kyler Murray, a tale of two halves last week. Still kind of disappointing numbers overall this season. How do you feel about him against the Rams?
Yeah, not a good matchup, but you still have to start him because, like we saw last week, what he can do with his legs, he always has a chance to run for yards, run for a touchdown. Even in a tough matchup, I think you have to start him.
I'm going to disagree this week, and I'll go into a little bit more detail when we talk about him in one of our other videos. But look, I'm down on Murray and this whole offense in general. I'm chalking up that second half of last week to kind of a fluke. So I'm down on Murray. I'm out this week. Now, Zach Ertz, I'm still in on because he was the leading target, leading receiver for them. And I think that's going to continue.
Yeah, for as long as Hopkins and all these receivers are out, you have to start Zach Ertz.
All right, Green Bay versus Tampa Bay. We're going to discuss each future Hall of Fame quarterback, starting with Aaron Rodgers. What do you think?
Don't feel good about him. Even against the Bears, didn't put up a huge game. Now getting a tough matchup against the Bucs. I think in a 1 QB league, you can definitely sit him. I still think he's startable in a 2 QB superflex, but man, don't feel good about it.
I don't feel good about him. I think there's going to be a lot of weeks this season where I could say you can sit Aaron Rodgers, and this is one of them. So I'm going to pass. And then what about Robert Tonyan? Really hasn't done much yet. Does that change against Tampa Bay?
Probably not. He's a touchdown dependent guy. Don't really want to be starting Robert Tonyan.
Yeah, I'm a lot less excited about Tonyan than I was. Not that I was ever that excited to begin with. So I'm going to say no to Tonyan too, since I'm saying no to Rodgers. Tom Brady, already without Chris Godwin, now going to be without Mike Evans. Is this a week where we're sitting Tom Brady?
Yeah, and again, like Aaron Rodgers in a 1 QB league, I'm benching Tom Brady most definitely. Still probably playable in a 2 QB super flex league, but don't feel good about him either.
Yeah, and look, here's the thing. Is a guy who doesn't give you that rushing upside. We know this. All his weapons are banged up, so I'm sitting Tom Brady this week for sure. And probably goes without saying, going to say no to Cameron Brate.
Yeah, no to Cameron Brate, no.
Falcons and Seahawks. I mean, look, there are leagues where you have to start 2 quarterbacks, right? So Marcus Mariota, hey, look, you need to replace Trey Lance. Maybe your quarterback's disappointing you. Is Mariota a guy that would interest you?
Yeah, I think he's streamable this week, and I'll tell you, I have a Superflex league where I have Aaron Rodgers and Marcus Mariota, and I'm probably starting Mariota over Aaron Rodgers.
Well, there you go. And he does give that rushing upside. Snuck into the end zone week 1. Not too great last week, but had 2 really tough defensive matchups the first 2 weeks. And now they get Seattle. So I do think there's some hope for Mariota, depending on your situation. Kyle Pitts, look, I'd say we can't say he's a must start anymore because he's done almost nothing. Was it 2 catches for 19 yards each of the first 2 weeks? But you kind of have to trust him this week, don't you?
Yeah, you got to give him one more shot against the Seahawks. If he doesn't do it this week, then you can go full-fledged, panic, look for other options, but at least give him a chance against the Seahawks.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, 2 really good defenses, but I think a lot of the issues, the schemes, they're just not looking his way. I think this might be a get-right game for him, so you have to start him. Geno Smith, he gets the Falcons.
I don't care. I'm never going to start Geno Smith. He's not throwing for any yards no, I'm not starting Geno Smith.
Yeah, I'm with you there. 49ers, new, old quarterback, and that would be Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, we know what we're getting with him, so I kind of feel like I know what you're going to say about Jimmy Garoppolo, but go ahead.
There's matchups where I'll say, sure, go ahead with Jimmy G, but not against the Broncos. I'm going to sit Jimmy G this week.
Yeah, he's never going to excite anybody. Serviceable at times, but look, if you lost Trey Lance, he's not the first guy you should be going to pick up or start. We've already talked about a lot of these other streaming options that are better. So sit Jimmy Garoppolo if you did add him this week. George Kittle, though, it's interesting, though. If he does play, which is still in question, how do you feel?
I think if Kittle plays, you have to play him. Look at the tight ends we're talking about. This isn't like you have a ton of options. If George Kittle plays, you pretty much have to play him.
Yeah, I mean, if he's good to go, you think that he's going to be involved. Even against a good defense, the best players usually do something. And Jimmy Garoppolo will definitely target the tight end. So, yeah, you have to start Kittle if he's a full go. Russell Wilson. Don't know what to make of him, do you?
No, but I don't think you can bench Russell Wilson unless you have another really good option. Maybe for Cousins, maybe for Derek Carr, I would bench him. But outside of that, don't love him this week, but I still think you got to roll with him.
Man, I would find it really hard. I mean, I know if you drafted him, you figure you're going to go with him, and you hate to put a guy like, Mariota or someone like that over Russell Wilson, but he's not getting it done. This is a really bad matchup, and if Jerry Jeudy doesn't play, I might sit Russell Wilson, to be honest. Like, not completely in a super flex league, but in a single quarterback league, I'd just rather take my chances with somebody else. And then Albert O, speaking of O, put up a big 0 last week. Any hope for him this week?
Touchdown or bust, so no, not starting Albert O.
Yeah, no, I have zero interest in Albert O going forward. And then finally, we got the Cowboys and the Giants. 2 gunslingers we're not going to be talking about. We're going to start with Cooper Rush. I mean, he was serviceable, but, against the Giants, any interest?
No, it's probably going to be a very low-scoring game, so no interest in Cooper Rush.
Yeah, I think I'll pass on Cooper Rush if that was an option. Dalton Schultz, I mean, who knows? It's supposedly a PCL injury. it's still in question whether he's even going to play. So if he does manage to go, do you roll with him?
No, I got to sit Dalton Schultz. A, coming with the injury, you don't know how effective he's going to be. And B, Cooper Rush wasn't really looking for him like Dak Prescott does. So I'm going to say no to Dalton Schultz.
Yeah, I want to wait to see if he's completely healthy and he gets right. So, man, it's tough to say. You're going to have to sit Schultz if you have him. And on the other side, Daniel Jones.
Never Daniel Jones. Sitting Daniel Jones.
I didn't think so. He's not even running enough to make himself interesting in fantasy. So, nope, no Daniel Jones. All right, that's our take on all the quarterbacks and tight ends you need to know about in fantasy. What about those other positions? Running back, wide receiver, look, everything you need to know to help you set that winning lineup can be found right here in this playlist. Check it out right now, and we're going to help you win because that is our end game.